Hello, and thanks for joining me. This week is an actual update video for the worms. I'm starting in my regular tote bins. For reference, my totes are not double stacked. I don't have another tote bin at the bottom. I don't have any holes at the bottom of my bin as well for any of the liquid to evaporate. I handle all my moisture issues just by whether I use the bubble wrap or the mosquito netting. Right now, I'm going through a process where I am redoing my breeder bin. So I'm taking worms out of my existing bins. I decided not to purchase any new worms. So I'm taking worms out of existing bins that are fully mature and putting them into a separate bin to try to make sure I have extra worms if I ever need to replace a colony. Here, I forgot that was what I was doing, and so I had to move the food over and make a spot for my bait tray. I'm going to feed only in the bait tray so that all the worms can congregate in there, so I have a good selection of worms to choose from. I'm trying to put about 50 to 75 worms from each bin into the tray. So I finished up this bin. It looked pretty good for the week, and it's all set to go for next week. In my second regular tote, this is the one that I'm doing as a trash can style, and it was running wetter than the most basic tote. And with trash can style, it just means that I'm putting larger chunks of cardboard and larger pieces of food. So I don't shred the cardboard, I just rip it up into larger pieces, kind of like what you would do in a garbage can. And I try not to put any blended food into this container. So here I am breaking up the cardboard, putting in the large banana piece, and finishing up the food with the grit. Once I've done that, I'll cover it with cardboard and some of the existing castings and set it up for the next week. I'm not going to add any moisture to this bin because it's already holding on to a lot. And the worms look nice and healthy. I don't see any trails around the corners. So I'm going to do one more week with the bubble wrap just on one side to see how the bin is, whether it's drying it out or whether I think it's a risk. And we'll check that next week. This bin is my first of my Vermi style totes. And in here, I don't tend to hold a lot of moisture in my Vermi totes. It's a nice huge worm ball there. I don't tend to hold a lot of moisture in my Vermi totes. They tend to be dry, and this bin had some dry patches in it. So I am thoroughly mixing up the castings in the bin, again, with a very light touch, but mixing up all the castings from the bottom because the bottom of these Vermi style bags seem to hold the moisture the most. I am going to get donor worms from this bin as well too. So I have 2 bait trays going because I didn't want to spend like 6 weeks trying to get worms out of all of my bins. I'm trying to do this the fastest way possible. So I put a bait tray in here as well. Again, no signs that I have unhappy worms, no signs of escapes. So this bin is set up for the next week where I will collect the worms from it. Moving on to my last of my tote style bins. This is the bin that recently got the donor worms from the breeding bin program that I ran. Now this bin is definitely wetter than the other Vermi tote because of all the material that was in here and then the short sift that I did through it. And I'm not doing much to it this week beyond just feeding it and letting it go for another week. That brings me to my last of my composting systems, which is the Flow Through Vermi Bag Mini. And you can see I got welcomed by the beetles on the top again. And once again, I will be sprinkling the top. I think I'm going to be doing this for most of the summer, where I'm going to be sprinkling the worm grit on the top because of the neem cake and diatomaceous earth that is in there. I've gotten a couple of questions regarding the neem cake and diatomaceous earth, and the diatomaceous earth is not harmful to the worms due to the mucus layer that surrounds them, so it doesn't affect the worm population. And the neem cake is for the pests themselves to kind of get in there and get into their exoskeleton to make it hard for them to maneuver and thrive. So in here, I'm just focusing on feeding up the bin. I'm not going to add any additional cardboard, just the food to the bin this week since since I'm trying to eliminate some of the pests and I had add so much cardboard in the weeks previous. So I'm just going to make sure it's thoroughly wet down because this does lose a lot of moisture throughout the week. And then this bin is set up for its next week. And that is the update on all of my composting systems. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. It helps my channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.